Welcome to another episode of No Butts About It. I am your host, Josh Butts, in my dining room in Indiana. We have Chus in his parents' basement in Pittsburgh, and we have Stan, the Jet fan, in his dorm room in Steubenville, Ohio. Of course, it is September 11th, and we do remember all those lives that were lost today. And it's also my parents' wedding anniversary. They were married before the events, though, so it's not a weird crossover thing. But anyway, shout out to my parents. Happy anniversary.
And
Let
happy birthday to my friend Nate. He may not listen to this, but happy birthday to Nate. He actually was born on September 11th, 2001, on the day that it happened. So if there is any blessing that happened, at least
Nate was born.
Nate,
Well,
my buddy
Nate,
Nate
if
Fuller.
you do listen, thank you. And if you don't, you'll never hear this. So whatever.
But, yeah, we do remember the lives that are lost because it was a very big tragedy in America, and it's very sad. But we're not here to try to bring the mood down too much. We're here to talk some football with you guys on this Monday afternoon here. And Josh, would you like to start us off here? Because I know you love to start us off because I'm just a co-host.
So, first thing we're going to talk about, Cincinnati Bengals, the best team in the NFL, did absolutely trash yesterday. Like, the offense was so questionable. I don't want to overreact, but I'm not sure Joe Burrow is completely healthy. Someone texted me during the game that Joe Burrow looks like Sam Darnold and he is seeing ghosts in the field. There was weather that was a factor, and we had some balls that were kind of underthrown, overthrown, couldn't really get a grip on them. The run game could have been better. Basically, everything offensively that we're usually really good at went horrible. Terrible game. And I don't feel bad saying that because the players know that. I don't think that they came out of that game and were like, oh, yeah, you know what? 82 yards. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's the Super Bowl team right there. But getting that out of the way, the bad stuff. We sucked. We lost to the Browns, only scored 3 points. McPherson shanked a field goal. It was a whole mess. Like, we didn't have any business playing in that game. Week 1 doesn't count. But let's look at the good stuff because they're going to make week 1 count anyway. Defense. We did have a forced fumble. Jermaine Pratt forced a fumble off of Nick Chubb, which again could have been because of the wet conditions, but Jermaine Pratt is that guy. He likes to force a lot of turnovers. So that was a very good play, very exciting. And then Dax Hill was able to come up with an interception. He was brought in, or he was drafted last year in the first round to presumably replace Jesse Bates, who we will talk about later. Jesse is some very big shoes to fill. Dax Hill did a very nice job of filling those shoes. He was everywhere yesterday. Same with Cam Taylor-Britt. Very excited about this defense. If there was one thing that you had to pick out yesterday, the Bengals did well, it is that the defense looked great. Could have been better sometimes, but for the most part, they looked amazing. Very excited to watch this defense as I have been all offseason. Second thing that I loved, Orlando Brown Jr. Starting left tackle, his first game, brought him in from the Chiefs. He was a free agent, and Chiefs fans are saying, hey, this guy sucks. We got Jawan Taylor now, and the NFL lets him line up illegally. We can get away with it. So we don't need Orlando Brown Jr. Orlando Brown Jr. lined up against Myles Garrett. And yes, there were some times that he got beat by Myles Garrett. But it's Myles frickin' Garrett. Myles Garrett is arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL. And when it was all said and done, Joe Burrow was only sacked 2 times, which I'd say is pretty good for an offensive line that is still coming together and for a player who was going up against the best pass rusher in the NFL in his first game. So that was very exciting. I do, however, want to give a shout out to a young Browns cornerback who I truthfully hadn't really heard much about before yesterday, Amari Jones. And Amari Jones ruined many people's fantasy teams yesterday because he was primarily on T. Higgins, and he kept T. Higgins from catching the ball. Amari Jones played fantastic yesterday. He locked down T. Higgins. T. Higgins is usually a guy who's very good at catching those competitive balls. He's able to climb up and get the ball when he needs to. Amari Jones made sure that didn't happen. T had 8 targets and had 0 receptions. So Amari Jones is someone who, if you're a Browns fan, you should be very excited to have, in my opinion, because locking up T. Higgins is not an easy task. A lot of Bengals fans are freaking out. They're saying, it's over. We suck. I hate this team. Zach Taylor's an idiot. This is what Bengals fans say every year when we lose opening week. And by the end of it, Zach Taylor is a genius who the whole city loves. I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried if you're a Bengals fan. I think you should be worried if you're a Steelers fan, though, because the Bengals are going to come, and we are going to make sure that we are not going to give that division back to you guys or the Ravens.
Or I guess the Browns, technically, since they have your number, considering,
No,
I mean, hey, go figure, we still put up a touchdown, at least. So,
yeah,
I
but
mean,
Kenny Pickett forgot. Kenny, this is why I say week 1 doesn't count, because it's like the best quarterbacks in the league all forgot how to play football.
I was going to say, I was like, even with Kenny Pickett forgetting how to throw a ball, I mean, I feel like a lot of quarterbacks just were not having good games. I mean, arguably, I feel like Patrick Mahomes had struggled on Thursday night with like his receivers and stuff. So that kind of like tanked his completion rate at times. So I feel like just because I know Joe Burrow he was like, I hate to bring up the stat because I know you are probably going to like cringe, but I know it was like he was like what 12 of 32 or something like that for 80 yards or something like that.
Joe Burrow sucked yesterday.
I think Kenny Pickett was like 24 of 36 or like 20 of 36, but still a lot of the throws he had were kind of questionable. And I'm going to ask you this before I get into my next thing, because this was a question I actually have posed into something relating to the Steelers. So actually, I'll probably just get into mine unless you have any final thoughts with the Bengals, because you kind of like led into the Steelers talk.
I have nothing about the Bengals, but Stan, did you have anything about the Bengals? I don't know if you watched that game or not.
I did watch it, and I had a bunch of Bengals on my fantasy teams, so it was quite disappointing. I will say, for the record, I was the person who texted you about the Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold thing.
Okay.
Joe Burrow did not look like himself last night. Now, I'm still a big fan of Joe Burrow, and I think he is a top 5 quarterback. But there's a lot of weight on his shoulders looking into these futures games, because if you're he's a third-year quarterback now, somebody who's been around, fourth-year quarterback, been around, had the last 2 seasons for him are amazing, right? He has to be able to lead his team. Now, Higgins being covered so closely definitely had an impact on him, but he was failing to find open passes sometimes, and some of the passes he did throw were into places that had no receivers around him. So I really hope he could bring it together. I do think part of the blame is on his O-line. Even though he only got sacked twice, there were a lot of defensive players getting through. Now, Joe Burrow is a guy who knows how to throw the ball away and get out of those situations, which is why he only got 2 sacks. But I do think his O-line is partially to blame when they're getting so many guys coming at him the entire game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the O-line wasn't like, we're not talking Eagles O-line here, but when we're used to getting sacked 5 times a game and they only allowed 2 sacks against the best pass rusher in the NFL, I'll take that as a win when they're still trying to figure stuff out. It's not a perfect O-line, but people were acting like there were high schoolers out there and that they weren't even standing there. And so I think they played a lot better than what people give them credit for.
And I was gonna say real quick for like Bengals fans, I wouldn't stress on it too much, as Josh said, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we've already mentioned it is week 1. Joe Burrow had been injured all of preseason or most of preseason. On top of that, Joe Burrow also didn't look that great in the Steelers game week 1 last year, and he also was kind of dealing with an injury during preseason last year, and he bounced back. So, I mean, I'm not saying Joe Burrow was the sole reason why you guys lost last year against the Steelers, but I'm just saying that even with that loss, you guys still bounced back, and I'm pretty sure you guys won week 2. I mean, I don't remember. You would probably remember better than I do, but
I think we still lost. If
either,
we suck this bad week 3, I'll be worried. Week 2 is
that's what I'm saying. And plus, and on top of that, on top of the Joe Burrow thing, it is a divisional game, and divisional games are never meant to be easy. It's because you play them twice a year. Sometimes you see them in playoffs. I mean, last year you saw Baltimore 3 times. So, I mean, there's always that chance that you struggle against these teams. And we know that Joe Burrow doesn't do the best against Cleveland. You even said that on your last podcast or on the last podcast. So it happens, but I wouldn't stress on it too much.
Yeah. So what's our Steelers reaction? What's our, I didn't watch that game. My red zone wasn't working. So I don't know.
That's okay. You didn't really miss a whole lot of eventful action on that side of the ball. I will give you the details that I know up until halftime, because I actually did turn it off so that I could go DoorDash and make money, because I figured I was like, this isn't a good enough game to watch for me to actually be invested in. So at one point in the game, at the beginning of the game, we got the kickoff and I was really excited, and then we immediately went 3 and out. But on the first play of the game, Kenny Pickett threw a ball to George Pickens for 6 yards. Super exciting. I'm like, okay, cool. Next thing you know, I see a jet sweep, and I was like, we're done. Because all Matt Canada likes to do is play the dang jet sweep. So a couple of things that I have kind of noticed. First of all, I don't think Kenny Pickett played great. And, I'm a huge Kenny Pickett fan, but I don't think he played really, really solid football yesterday. Now, granted, he did have a touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think he had 240 passing yards, which is okay. It wasn't like he did a horrible performance. I mean, go figure, Daniel Jones yesterday in that game threw for 104 yards and 2 interceptions. So, I mean, at least he did better than Daniel Jones did. So I will give Kenny a little bit of credit on that. At least we got a touchdown on the board. But it was a very hard game to watch. Now, I know San Francisco is a very good team, but there's a lot of weaknesses that I've seen already in the team. For example, the offensive line, the O-line, the picket fence that was supposed to be this huge thing. You allow Kenny to get sacked 5 times. And one of the things I noticed during the game was that, Kenny Pickett, he's only in year 2. So, he's going to have what they call happy feet. He's going to be a little startled in the backfield. He's not going to know when to run. He's going to be, stressed out. He's hearing the footsteps. And the problem is if he doesn't have a good O-line to protect him, he's going to struggle a little bit. I mean, this is his first year starting the full season. Last year, he started week 4, was hurt a couple of times because he had 2 concussions. So with the offensive line struggling, it kind of put a lot of pressure on Kenny. I think he had 6 total pressures or something like that and got sacked 5 times. So that is not good for an O-line to have to be struggling that bad, and to allow Kenny to get sacked 5 times is ridiculous. So, but I mean, I don't think Kenny was he did as best as he possibly could. It still wasn't that great. I mean, he was overthrowing balls. He was underthrowing, a lot of underthrown stuff. On one of the interceptions, I didn't see the other one, but on one of the interceptions, he kind of overthrew it to Deontay Johnson, and Deontay Johnson slipped. I noticed a couple players were slipping yesterday, but they were also slipping during the Pitt game. So that was kind of interesting, because Pitt also played at Acrisure on Saturday. Because Patrick Peterson also slipped in the end zone against Brandon Ayuk, which caused the first touchdown for the San Francisco 49ers. So that was kind of worrying, because, Patrick Peterson, but I actually didn't think Peterson looked that bad. I think he did pretty good on some of the lockdown, slot plays. Some of the slot guys would try to get first downs, and he would just kind of slap it down. He didn't play bad, but I do wonder about the defense overall. And I don't know if you guys can hear my dog barking either, but yeah, so my dog probably sees the mailman or something, but nonetheless, I think the O-line was struggling. It made Kenny Pickett struggle. San Francisco's a very good team. Obviously, they went to the NFC Championship for a reason, and they probably could have won that game had Brock Purdy not gotten hurt. So this team is very elite. The Steelers are still rebuilding, and they're still struggling. And one of the things that really really made me frustrated yesterday, because like once I turned it off and I was like, we're not doing anything, very bad plays. Kenny's getting pressured too much. He's overthrowing. He's getting underthrown. He's just not doing well. One of the things that I hate doing, and this is probably why I don't go on Twitter that much, or X, just like how you were talking about Bengals fans, Steelers fans are like 10 times worse when it comes to this. And that is why I am a Steelers fan, but I am not a part of whatever they call themselves, a Steeler Nation, because my goodness gracious, Steelers Nation is the most toxic fan base I've ever even seen on Twitter in my entire existence, because goodness gracious, literally as soon as one bad game happens, they want to just just get rid of the entire team. And that's not how that works, because and this is where the question goes. Like, they would blame 4, 5, 6, 7 different people on the reason we lost and stuff like that. And I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly who it is. I mean, I would personally, when it comes to the offense and the trends with the offense, I would personally blame Matt Canada, just because over the last couple of years, he hasn't been getting those offensive yards. I mean, you're only averaging, last year, you only averaged 16, 17, maybe 18 points offensively a game, which is not good for a team that's trying to, actually win games. You're relying solely on your defense, who, can only do so much. But one of the things that Steelers fans don't realize is that one bad game doesn't define us, and that there's 16 more games that we have to play after this. But one of these questions that I had was and this just goes for everybody in general, because people were saying Kenny Pickett was trash, Mike Tomlin was, a terrible coach, Matt Canada is awful. And it kind of goes into this question, because this is the same question I've been asking people. I was but more or less, if Joe Burrow, and this is just hypothetical, this is completely hypothetical, because I had to think this myself as well. If Joe Burrow has similar numbers to what he had yesterday for, let's say, this next 6 games, I'm not saying 80 yards and a touchdown, but let's say 130 and an interception, or 130 and a touchdown, would you blame the head coach, the offensive coordinator, or the quarterback?
I'll let Stan answer this, and then I'll answer it, because I want to think about it.
Okay.
I'm probably blaming that coaching staff. I mean, Joe Burrow is a guy who's proven. Kenny Pickett, I'm a big fan of Pickett, and I think he's shown himself on the field throughout last year. And Pickett, even in the preseason, he looked really solid. So I'm probably blaming that coaching staff. I think they need to make sure their quarterback is getting the help he needs, and he's getting the work in that he needs in practice throughout the week leading up to each game. The coaching staff is responsible for providing that for him. So if he is struggling to read the field and deal with his matchups, I would put the blame on them.
I'm going to give a non-answer, and that is, I think it would matter what is the context. So is the coach drawing up plays that work well for the receivers? Are the receivers injured? I'm going to assume the receivers aren't injured in this hypothetical.
In this hypothetical, assume none of the receivers are hurt.
If Joe was throwing like he was yesterday, I would blame Joe.
Okay.
Because he was throwing to people that didn't exist.
Yes.
And part of that, I think, was because of the pass rush. Part of that was the rain. The combination of the two kind of makes you lose the entire middle of the field. So he can only throw to the sideline. It's hard to make those passes sometimes. If that became a consistent thing where he's just not comfortable throwing in the middle of the field, then I'd start to blame Joe Burrow. If we're in the Steelers' case, as we've seen multiple times, where we're only running jet sweeps, we're only running post routes. Matt Canada likes his post routes.
Yeah.
I can see why you would blame the coaching staff and not Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where Steelers fans always just pick somebody to target in the comments section or on Twitter. So it's kind of just instead of somebody being it's Matt Canada's fault, or it's they'll blame every single player ever. They'll be the reason we lost was Patrick Peterson slipping in the end zone. The reason we lost was Deontay Johnson causing Kenny Pickett to get the ball intercepted. Kenny Pickett is bad. Matt Canada is bad. The defensive coordinator is bad. Mike Tomlin needs fired. He doesn't do anything. Now, off topic, but just so you guys know, Steelers fans, Mike Tomlin is not getting fired anytime soon. I just want you to know that, because
the only coach in the NFL without a losing season isn't getting fired soon?
Well, another thing that Steelers fans want is for Mike Tomlin to be fired. Now, I will say that like some of the Super Bowl runs that he had early on in his career, like in 2008 and like 2010, I believe, or 2011, whichever year that was against Green Bay, those teams I feel like they were built up by the coach before him, which was Bill Cowher, or not? Yeah, Cowher. Yeah. So, and a lot of that was built up by Cowher, and I mean, so a lot of the success Mike Tomlin had at the early part of his career was from Cowher, but a lot of fans get really frustrated because they feel that Mike Tomlin hasn't done anything. But the one thing with it is like he's still getting those winning seasons, like doing anything as in like getting us that championship. Like we had the Killer Bees and that crazy offense, years and years in like 2014 and 13 and stuff like that, just for us to lose in like the wild card divisional or the AFC championship to like the Patriots or something. So a lot of times they're like, well, Mike Tomlin can't, like he just like sucks. And like, there needs to be a change. The problem is the Rooneys who own the Steelers really like people that can like motivate the team. And what Mike Tomlin likes to do is motivate the team. So, for example, last year we started 2-6 and we finished the season 7-2. So it would have been, well, we didn't finish at 7-2, but we started with a record of 2-6. Our final, we finished 9-8, but we finished out the season with a 7-2 record. So, which is pretty good. So he likes to motivate his players. And going into this week, I wouldn't be surprised if he motivates the Steelers to win on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh against the Cleveland Browns, who, knock on wood, have not won in Pittsburgh since 2003. So let's hope that continues staying on. It's been like 20 years. I mean, granted, minus the AFC wildcard game that happened like 3 years ago, like a season game. They haven't won since 2003. But just a lot to say. But Mike Tomlin, I don't think's the problem. I think it might be Canada. If it's not Canada, I mean, you just kind of have to like play it by ear, because for Steelers fans, they're very quick to blame somebody, everybody. And I feel like the Bengals fans are kind of giving you a little bit of taste of what Steeler Nation has become, because I know everybody on your end is complaining pretty poorly too on why everybody should be fired and everybody should be an idiot and Joe Burrow sucks. So I don't know if anybody said that, but nonetheless,
that's sacrilege in Cincinnati. You can't say that.
Anyway, but that was my point. So I think we're going to be in for a better week too, to me and to you.
Okay. Stan, did you have anything to add before we move on? No? Okay.
No.
So if you have anything to say, the viewer, if you have any thoughts on why the Bengals and the Steelers sucked week 1, make sure to comment that below and we can discuss that. I know one of the videos, I forget which video it was, someone commented, is this Chus guy for real?
Yeah, I don't really know what I said in that Ty Chandler video, but I'm 100% real, so I don't.
He is real. He's as real as it gets.